you're doing me a favour. Hi, so Jim Partridge. I'm a modder and mapper, and we're talking through the mod I created called Deeper Down. We're actually going to recover a section of gameplay that I went through on the last video, but joining me is Lonnie Boy or Abraham Lee. Hey, how you doing?
Hey, hi. I'm Abraham Lee, also known as Honey Boy. You can just call me Abraham or Abe. That's probably the easiest. People always wonder how to pronounce my username, so just call me my actual name. I don't care.
It is a little confusing, isn't it? But in fact, I've always wrestled with that, I have to admit. But anyway, but we've done videos before, right? We did like Liberation. I think we played through on Critical Gym years ago.
Yeah, man, I completely forgot about that, dude. That was buried deep.
Yeah, and that went, and it was one of the things I seem to remember, and it was quite a long mod, and we were having quite a good chat, and we were like, should we finish it? This has got like 5 or 10 more minutes left. You know, we'd already been going for like so long, so I think we ended up.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, and you just kind of ran through the end, and yeah, I remember that now. Yeah.
All right. So it should be said that you're watching my stream, right? So you're going to be a little bit behind the action.
I'll try my best not to like randomly point and be like, no there, no there, no there.
And one thing I used to get criticized for was moving the viewpoint around too much, and people are trying to watch the video and they're feeling sick, right? Because it's just because I'm basically, whenever I'm highlighting something, I sort of wiggle the mouse at it and kind of. I'll try and keep it. Obviously, what we're going to look at now is an action scene. And I will just intro this. So what I had was a situation. I was in the sewers down the bottom, beneath this section, and I needed a way to transition between the sewers out to the lake side sort of view piece, which we'll get to in a little bit. And it occurred to me that the huge car lift, that vehicle elevator that Ed had built wasn't really being showcased properly, and it was so good, and I was like, I need to find another way to get that in, so that, you know, because it is such a unique model and it's really huge amount of care went into it, and I really like to showcase his work. So I wanted to sort of come up in elevation pretty much immediately to go back down again in the next level, but the only reason you're sort of coming up to this level of elevation is that, and then when I got to the top here, I knew that I needed, you know, a break or something, some kind of action piece here to, you know, to change the flow of the gameplay at this point. So I came up with the point of, you know, you have this. And originally, this was 2 hunters in this space, and it was, and it was the gameplay I built here was trying to do that kind of. Here there are multiple paths and multiple routes through a very, you know, it's a fairly small space, and then letting the AI of the hunters kind of do the hard work.
Yeah.
And it worked. It was okay. But for some reason, I can't remember why, I switched over to, and other people have noted the absence of hunters in this mod, right? And they were there, and then they were removed. But for some reason, it changed into combat soldiers, and then I was saying to Abe before this, my experience of building combat spaces is somewhat limited. I have used the various entities that you can use to control AI for soldiers in terms of I think assault goals and things like that, where you kind of chain them together and give them pathways and things that they need to sort of attack and take over. But to be honest, I normally cheat. I just put in like an NPC clip at certain points to stop them from sort of running straight up to the player, and then and actually what I did in this space, I think, and I can't remember if you remember at this point, was I had used node, like epic, oh god, what am I talking about? Navigation nodes, and sort of group those together into a couple of, and then assign those to 2 soldiers, and assign the other set to the left.
Yeah, right.
To try and keep them just limited to only either going through the left-hand building or the right-hand building. And it was, you know, it was over in 2 seconds. It was passable, but yeah, I think you took a look at it and were like, we can do better things here, right?
Yeah, because you gave it to me and were like, I don't know how the salts work, help. And I was looking at the level, and I'm like, I really liked the sort of general idea. You know, you had this giant no man's land in the middle, had like 2 buildings, and a main building is sort of defending and attacking from. I'm like, this is like a good setup. And I was looking at it and I'm like, hey, Jim, this is good, but like I feel like there's like some more here. Do you mind if I make some geometry changes? And you were like, yeah, go for it.
Right.
And so I got them to split apart, like you said, and I can talk some more about that later when it actually happens. But the main thing I noticed was that the soldiers didn't have good line of sights. Goodness gracious, my voice. The node graph is pretty bad, but there's not a whole lot you can do. Making a good node graph is rough. Right. But if no one knows what a node graph is, in Half-Life 2, it's how the AI sort of navigate around, and it's basically a bunch of points that they just move between. But yeah, so my main thing I did was open up the sight lines between the buildings, make navigation a little bit smoother, and added some elevation, especially on the building on the left, because I noticed I think it was already a 2-story, but there was just no way to get up there. And I'm like, okay, to really make this fight interesting, you need to get the player to move their mouse up and down instead of just left and right.
Right.
So I threw in that second level there just to kind of make it where the player couldn't get habituated, I guess. They have to have their attention everywhere, not just directly on one level.
Right.
Yeah. And then I also opened up the middle building here because of how the main building, the building you started.
Yeah.
Because of how the windows were laid out and the hallways were, if the AI wanted to attack the player, they'd have to run all the way into that building.
Right.
I was like, no, that's how you get death charging combines and shotguns to the face, and it's dumb and it's over quick. So I did that, and I think that was the majority of the geometry changes I did, other than clearing up navigation and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't realize that you'd actually made changes to the main building at the end.
Yeah, there's like a bunch of like this. It's still a problem a little bit where there's a lot of like if you can walk inside the building and look around the sight lines, you can actually see that it's not very easy to defend.
Right.
Like there's only one small room that funnels them, and even then, the area where you kind of camp the enemies, so to speak, has longer sight lines than it used to have. So
yeah, and I think the main thing for me was to keep the combine out of the no man's land in the middle, right, and to have so that you would end up with combat, as I say, and they're fairly simple spaces, right, on the left and the right, and at the building at the back. But it was, for me, I really wanted you either to be lured into those spaces, right, or to at least be able to make a choice. Like you've got two lots of enemies coming from two different directions. Do you go left or do you go right? So to add a bit more, interest there. But I think it turned out pretty well. So a couple of things to point out just while I'm looking at this. First of all, there's a missing texture on the combined shield above the tunnel over on the left, which I will fix if I actually get the chance to release this on Steam. But people might have noticed that in the video, so I like to pull this out. And I put one of those crates that have the grenades in them on the roof as an option. Those, I mean, as a tactical option, didn't really work out in the mod overall, right? It was a nice idea of having that red crate that you can shoot and the grenades come out, but I don't think I really used them to their advantage, put it that way.
But it's still, especially with the way I scripted it, because there's a bunch of different ways to script things in Half-Life 2.
Right.
The command will still react to the grenades on the roof. So if you do blow it up, they will actually stop what they're doing, avoid the grenades, and then go back to whatever script they were running.
So at least it's for like distraction or to give them something else to think about, right?
Yeah, which is something you can't really. It's something in Half-Life 2 that I started to notice as I really delved deep into how it works.
Yeah.
Is that it's really hard to get enemies to stop shooting you, and that's one of the only ways to do that.
Because I mean, I think you know more. You've looked into like Combine AI and stuff like that, probably more than anyone I know, right? It's almost, it seems to be somewhat an obsession for you, right?
Yeah. I've got a bit of a problem, but it works out.
So what I'm going to do is load up with the various crates and stuff that are available, and then hit the switch here, and just to point out to really, or there's the G-Man sighting, I think, at this point somewhere. But there's
I had a soldier up there as well where the G-Man was. And
right.
I moved him for some reason.
Did I kill that? I might have killed that.
Yeah, you did. I remember watching the gameplay.
I wanted the G-Man sighting to be more subtle, and he was drawing way too much attention to or it was in the
yeah.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
But,
and I know that the guy up there was in a really mean position too, because he had the AR2.
Yeah, AR2. Yeah, that was pretty brutal as well. Yeah. So the so the other thing is, how many times, if you're building out a scenario like this with the stuff that you've been doing, how many? I mean, obviously you play through it time and time again, right? But is like a methodical approach to it, or?
Well, honestly, it used to be, but nowadays I kind of have a sixth sense for knowing when something's going to be bad for the combine and when something's going to be good.
Right.
So I was like, okay, sight lines, verticality, go. I knew how to set up the script almost instantly. So I did all that, and then I played through it once, and I think everything mostly worked after the initial setup. And I'm like, wow, this is actually really good. Like I was shocked at how well the combine were using the space.
Right.
After that, I think I just polished up the node graph a little bit. I think the guy in the back wasn't pathing correctly. The guy on the sniper dude wasn't pathing correctly, and so I fixed that, and then it was kind of fine after that. Normally, it's a lot longer of a process, but yeah, I think because I had such a good layout to work with to begin with,
right.
It's that difficult.
Options, yeah, it's good when you can sort of build the options into it and then let the AI do what they do best, right? And just sort of, and then like the other thing I was going to say is I always struggle with how close node placement needs to be and whether that matters or whether I should be more sort of sparing with them, right?
Yeah, that's actually one way I got them to not use the no man's land was there's actually less nodes in the no man's lands than there is in the buildings. Right. And because they go to the buildings after they spawn, they tend to pick the nodes that are closest. There's so many nodes close to them that they tend to just stick around there.
Gotcha.
Which is another way to discourage them from running through that no man's area. Yeah. They still do it. I even noticed in some of when we were testing this earlier, a guy ran from one building all the way over to the other building. And
really?
So yeah, but he did it so fast and that you didn't really notice it.
Right, gotcha. Oh, that's interesting. There's no, it's just some map. I think when I first started out mapping, you just flood the entire floor with nodes, right?
yeah.
To solve the problem, and then you realise it's actually quite a big distance for nodes to link. Like before they can't link. I can't remember what the actual distance is in units, but it's quite a long way between nodes. You don't need that many. Obviously, in a space like this, it's complex, so you need more of them. But just in general, I always surprised by how big a space it is actually on a map between two nodes that are absolutely necessary for them to link.
And one thing I figured out, especially when it comes to nodes, is that, especially due to the way the combine work, node graph placement is actually a lot more important for the combine than like Metro Cops, for example.
Right.
Because when combine choose where to attack, they pick a node and they stick to it. So actually having good node placement is very important to make sure you get the best out of them.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's okay, right. So I'm going to hit the button and
I'll talk a little bit about what's going on.
Yeah, go for it. So
the fight opens up and I get them to spread out between two buildings using a script, and that script kind of gets them to stay there for a couple seconds. Right. And now most players who are quite aggressive or go on the attack, by the time they get out there, those scripts cancel, and so then then the AI can kind of just do whatever the heck it wants. So I'm just holding them back for like a few seconds,
right.
And then after that, it's just all default AI, and they decide what.
Yeah, sorry, I was going to say it's enough to lure the player out of the building to make that choice, right, about where they're headed.
Yeah. And because of the way, because of the way scripting in Half-Life 2 works, if you like kind of run away and camp, they will eventually attack you. But if you stay out in the open, they'll keep staying back. So it's very reactive to how players decide to tackle the scenario.
Right. And when you're using scripts, so this is VScript you're talking about, or?
No. I'm scripting is in the entities that you can use in Half-Life 2.
Yeah.
They're generally all grouped under scripts. It's just anything that tells the NPCs to do stuff they wouldn't normally do is what I consider a script.
Right. Got it. I put Buddha on. That doesn't seem to have taken effect. I don't know why. Maybe because I shut the game.
I think you restarted earlier and it disabled it.
Yeah.
Because it should say Buddha mode on in the console. Oh, no, it doesn't need a 1. It's just Buddha.
I knew that. No, hang on.
No. I think you're misspelling it.
Yeah, no, I think I am. Help me. There it is.
That's
is it
right there. Yeah, autocomplete.
I'm that.
There you go. Yeah.
I am that unworldly.
One of the interesting things about the combine in this is it's I think originally I was trying to make them a little weaker, and I accidentally gave all of them AR2s, and it helped the fight a lot. But man, the combine with AR2s are brutal. Like, I think me and you talked about this a while ago, and I looked in the code, and they have the exact same accuracy as the citizens. And the citizens are stupidly accurate because they're your allies. They have to fight.
Like citizens are basically just like walking turrets, aren't they? Right, pretty much.
Yeah,
In terms
yeah. Citizens are basically walking turrets and have super accurate guns.
yeah.
And it's the episodic versions of the Combine are super accurate. The base Half-Life 2 game, not really the same case
Oh,
because
really?
they use AR-2s a lot more often. Yeah, but it's the AR-2s are a lot rarer in the episodes, so they tend to have an accuracy buff on them.
Wow. No, I seem to.
But yeah, like
Sorry, go. Yeah.
I was gonna like you were just playing on normal, I think, and you got absolutely murdered
Right.
by the shotgunner and the AR-2 guys just coming at you from the sides.
Right.
So
I'm
yeah.
going to load that up again, and we'll do it one more time.
I really this honestly it just is just like you did a really good job with your initial layout of this. Like it, I think doing soldiers over hunters was a really good call
Right.
because the space is small enough that it really kind of moves to the soldier's strengths, and it has that kind of assault feel. With hunters, you're normally like pushed around a lot more. You can just type in kill in the console. That might work too.
Yeah, but because I'm recording, for some reason my mouse like detection isn't working very well, so I'm trying to load this up, and whenever there we go, got it. It's slightly off center for some reason. So
Yeah.
yeah, as you say, like giving it options, but then as you say, adding some elevation there as well. But I think with the where you first encounter the hunters in episode 2,
Mm-hmm.
that's got that kind of figure of 8 layout of buildings,
Mm-hmm.
like a triple figure of 8, where you can sort of dance around these buildings, and that was what I was sort of trying to go for, but really I didn't have enough room. And it's one of those silly things where you're building a map and you've boxed yourself in with these ideas of how the map should be, right? And there's no reason for it to be, you know, to be. There's no reason why, for example, I couldn't have gone out past the cliff edge, right, and just push the cliff edge out
Yeah.
to create a bigger space. But for some reason, when I'm building, sometimes you get yourself kind of boxed in with these, like these sort of areas that I don't know, but for some reason just felt locked in. But like, there's no reason I couldn't have gone out that way. Oh,
And that's something I suffer a lot from when I'm building anything is I tend to after my initial layout I tend to stick with that really hard,
yeah,
and so I
yeah,
have to start just taking chunks of level and just delete like saving that portion, putting it somewhere else, and then just deleting the whole thing and starting from scratch to just see if I can do something different or new.
exactly. And it's something that I think is really important, that when people are building, they tend to, as you say, you tend to sort of get hooked on what you've done, and you're loath to start again, right? But actually, rebuilding from scratch is a lot quicker because you've done it once already.
Mhm.
You know
Mhm.
exactly what you need, and also you can probably lift assets from the first version, and drop them into the
Mhm.
second one pretty quickly. And I swear to God, like most of my other work previously would have benefited from me just going, right, that was version 1, scrap it, right? Start again.
One of my favorite mapping experiences was working on Locomotive,
Right.
and I had an entire sewer section, and I had like a gazillion. I had that went through so many different iterations. The first iteration, I was like, this just doesn't feel right at all. Deleted it, started completely from scratch.
Right.
That iteration still felt bad. Deleted it, started from scratch, and then working on that, I was able to incorporate like aspects or ideas from those other layouts into it, but it also flowed very like I had gotten into a rhythm of the kind of space I had to deal with, and so it was very. It like worked. It was just felt fun to walk through,
Yeah.
which is not something that I feel like I'm achieving a lot of my levels. Where it's not the way you move through the space is just as fun as what you do in the space.
Right.
Which is really hard to do, and there's another one of those gut things. There's no like formula for making something fun to walk through.
No, there isn't. It's. I think my measure is: am I having fun? If I'm having fun, then I think other people are going to have fun, right? And I think this space here. I mean, obviously having your input and stuff really helps. And when you've played through something so many times that you just can't, and you end up playing through it the same way over and over again because
Yeah.
that's how your brain is. Which is why playtesting is so essential. Obviously, I think other people and their reactions are so different, but yeah, I think there's certain set, but having other people's input here really helps because actually I get to enjoy this. I get to play it and go, yeah, this is great. Yeah, because it sort of has someone else's brain, coming into
Yeah,
it.
and I've seen other like mod teams. Like I've never been part of a mod team before,
No.
but especially with the sort of interconnectedness that we have nowadays with Discord and all this stuff,
Yeah.
I've seen people work on Half-Life Alyx mods who are part of a huge mod team, and they'll pop in after being away for a week to some level they were working on, and some dude had contributed to it, and it's like a present on Christmas morning, like
Yeah.
I wasn't like you get so sick of this level, then you see someone else put their hands on it, and you're like, this is really good. Like they found what you had sort of lost in the level, if that makes sense,
Yeah, I think so. And it's also those things, like when you come back to a mod or something you've been building or a level a year later or something, you ditched it and then you come back to it, and suddenly the problems that you were running into before just aren't there anymore. You're like, oh my God, why don't I just do that? Like why
Yeah.
why was that not an option for me? Right, I'm gonna head into the left and
Oh
load.
yeah. I think I've talked this area to death. So
That's great. So I wanted to
this area has killed you plenty of times. So
right. So why don't you? Because obviously I could. I'll talk about this in my own bit, but why don't you talk us through your thoughts of just the sort of opening of this, and like just.
oh yeah, when I was originally playtesting this mod for you, and I got to this part, this floored me. Like something about the way everything's revealed, the way everything goes, like it was just unique. It was something I hadn't seen before in a Half-Life game. It had this grandiose, almost cinematic quality to it, and the music kicked in, and I was like, okay, Jim, like this, like out of all the work of yours I've seen, this is like the best,
No.
the best cinematic sort of what I've seen you do, and
It's
I was like, yeah, you need to keep this, you need to make this good and fun. And this area down here, I think originally was quite cramped. And I'm like, no, man, open it up. Like the emotions that I feel in this moment, dive into that, like really
yeah.
scoop, cultivate.
I mean, first of all, I think as I said earlier, the driver behind this was showing off Ed's work.
Mm-hmm.
Just I've got these amazing ship models that he's done, this amazing thing, and then you're dropping down. I've got Annicator's music going on, and then I was like, and later on, I knew I wanted to have the gunship fight, and so I was like, oh yeah, I'll just have the gunship fly by, and then and that really just gives the sense of space, having it fly, through.
Yeah, you used to see it appear in the distance. Yeah.
Right. And that just it turned out really. But as I say, this lift and everything wasn't even here. Like when this first started, I had the opening to the sewer just where the lift is here, and so you would just come out of the sewer into this space here, which made no sense at all. Not that it makes much more sense the way it is now, anyway, right? But yeah. And then if I remember right, what I had here was just a big open space that you drove through, and I knew that I wanted to have put the foot down, really big space to move through. But there was nothing in there. It was just a big, empty, open concrete, thing.
And I remember it was actually pretty small too. Like it was really difficult. Like I think it felt small. Like I feel like you've increased the scale of this area at least like 2 times.
Yeah, I think you're right. Probably along the way. I think I made it big enough just to put the crane in, because that crane model from Ed, he's had that for years, and I've always wanted to put it into a mod.
Yeah.
And obviously this made total sense to put it here, but in order to really justify its scale, you have to have a much bigger area to put it in, right?
Yeah. And then because of how fast you move in Half-Life 2, it's like, all right, well, you need the car here to be able to move around such a large space. You'd be walking forever.
Right.
Yeah.
But this was literally, and this is one of the big problems with like gaming like this is, or building levels for this kind of stuff is, it's you do all this work and then you're in a car and you're through it in 2 seconds. You're through the space in 2 seconds, and so it was really, I think, you who encouraged me. It's like, no, this needs to be an arena. This has to be like, and I think you said like Halo was the sort of
yeah, because I'd been playing a lot of Halo at the time actually, and I remember those sort of Warthog sections where they just give you a wide open space. You're like, yeah, just drive around, have some fun, go on some ramps. Right. There might be some random enemies patrolling around. You can just run over. So,
and that turned out really, really well. So thank you so much for that. And I think I think this. Wow, I just went straight through that guy.
Yeah, I've never seen that before.
This is for me, I think, one of the strongest areas, because I think because you're introducing this new environment, right?
Yeah.
Combined with are really fun. I mean, and actually, there aren't really, apart from the ending of episode 2, there aren't really any really big open driving spaces in Half-Life 2 where it's a bit more. Maybe the opening of for where you get the Jeep, in Half-Life 2
Yeah, but even then, like,
with the
because you're in that Jeep, it has the gun. You're really thinking more about shooting enemies and less about driving around enemies.
right,
You know,
yeah.
and more melee based, so they come to you. But here with the combine and the roller mines, like it keeps you enough on the move, and the combine are just evasive enough
Right.
where you have to make sure you hit them dead on, or else they actually get out of the way.
The other thing that I really liked about this area, and I don't know how many players that play it realize it, remember that Alex can turn the mines to your advantage, right? And
Mhm.
bring them to your side. And if you do, then the whole battle starts to tip in your favor along the way. Like
Yeah.
as you're going around, and suddenly whereas where you were hugely outnumbered, and obviously you've got the car, and that's an advantage, but suddenly they've got 5 or 6 different problems to worry about. Like the combine. I mean.
And I really like your use of like shotgunners. Like it's the right, like you use the enemy variety to keep the player moving. Like you got the AR2 guys, so you need to turn the back of the car so you don't get shot.
Right.
Got the shotgunners stopping you from just sitting in place, and then the roller mines to just give you that extra complication to like stop you from going down certain paths. It's just
Yeah, I took thank you, but I took the point of a mixed squad, right? If you're going to have
Mhm.
a squad, and I seem to remember the section of Half-Life 2, when you go in and you find the advisor in the barn, and you come
Yeah,
out, and there's a big firefight afterwards, right?
yeah,
And I covered that in a previous video, but where you've got the AR2 guys at a distance, you've got the shotgunners closing the distance between, but essentially it's like a mixed squad of different ranges,
yeah.
who are, and they work really well together in that respect. And it does, as you say, it keeps the player moving the whole time, which I think turned out really well. And it's in this case, it's definitely more by accident than design. But I mean, I wanted mixed squads, but the end result was, more by accident
Yeah,
than design.
yeah.
It's what I was hoping for, but I didn't know whether it would sort of figure out that way.
And that's true with a lot of stuff and things like that. It's like, okay, well, this is a good idea, but will it do anything? And then you play it and you go, oh, okay, yeah, it did do something. So yeah,
Yeah,
which
and originally the crane was just um, the big sort of container crane was just for show, right?
hmm
And
hmm
I think you drove through the bottom of it, on the way around here, and then getting to the other bit. Do you know what? And actually, sorry, just for legacy, this whole area, do you know what the original? Well, because you remember this was supposed to be like deep down, and I was remaking it, right? Basically,
yeah.
this is the hotel. This like from deep.
Oh,
This is where they started from, and basically, I was trying to sort of redesign that bit, and it went through so many iterations, starting with something that was similar to the hotel, and the idea was, you go through the sewers and then you come up.
even after this, like that interior space does give me similar hotel vibes. I didn't even think
Right,
about that.
it's got the car bit, lifting the car up with the crane, and to get you up onto the higher level of road, which
Yeah.
is the same, and then it just iterated from there. And you know how I don't know if some areas I have quite a clear design for the beginning. Other areas you just iterate and iterate, and it's a really slow, painful way of developing.
Yeah.
But it
I like this more than the hotel. I'll say that much. This is a lot cooler than the hotel.
Oh, really? See, the hotel yeah, I mean, the hotel in Deep Down is probably the area that people remember the most, I think.
hmm
Um, but yeah, that's good to know. So, but if you think about it, just in terms of the themes and the things that happen in this space, it's pretty much the same.
The beats, yeah, the
Yeah,
beats
yeah.
are pretty. Yeah.
And then the amount of crap I had to go through because you can leave Alex behind here, right? You can leave the car, right?
Yeah.
So how do I deal with that? And it's still somewhat broken, I think, in that I mean the idea of having the container, as a move linear where you're lifting it up and then dropping it down is most players play what they're supposed to, right? Which is, the idea is you're supposed to run down, get in the car, and get under the thing before
Was it always timed? Because I remember when I played it, I thought it had glitched and it wasn't. It was supposed to stop, but it never did. Or was it always supposed to be timed?
No, I think it was always, maybe in its first iteration it was a sort of, it would click when it reached the top.
Yeah.
maybe that's a better idea, right? Than I should do it. But in this situation, no, I wanted the move linear thing because I know I had the idea of this puzzle, and it was a horizontal container crane. You know that horizontal container crane that's in episode 2, where
Yeah, the one that I use. Oh
yeah,
God.
yeah.
What?
It was it was a horizontal puzzle where the container crane moved away from a wall, and then you had to get out of the booth down into the car and drive through the gap before the container moved back against the wall again.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Changed it to a vertical piece here, and it's a great idea if you don't have Alex, but you know if and it was sort of it's impossible to do it on foot, right? Was the idea. I don't know if it's
Hmm.
possible to get under there on foot. I'm assuming it is probably from the crane here, um, and that's bad. But you know, like you could jump out the crane and get underneath it on foot, leaving the car behind. So on the latest version, I had to add a ladder so you can get back.
Oh.
This is new. I only added this, and so yeah, that just so you can get back and solve this problem.
I like that better as than fiddling with the timing. So it's like, okay, if someone actually does actually leave their car behind, instead of making it physically impossible for them to go forward, because you have that gate where you need the car over the ramp anyway.
Exactly.
So
Yeah,
that's a
and it's actually the same earlier. There's the you know the level with the water chamber and you jump and catch the gravity gun right in the middle.
yeah, yeah.
That had the same problem where I had to have several gates for the gravity gun to get through it. Ultimately,
Mm,
you need it to get out of this space overall, but yeah, but there was sort of an inner gate that you could get out of the inner water chamber without having picked up the gravity gun, because you
yeah,
could release the floating stuff just by using the crowbar, right? By shooting sort of floaty platforms underwater. Anyway, so yeah, this bit, you're sort of, I built this building and I was sort of trying to come on, and you end up zigzagging your way through the internal building here. I don't know if you can see what I can see, but
I can see it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, and that is really lazy. I think that's really lazy. It's just to have an up and down zigzag, right? It's
I
like,
never wanted to say anything, but yeah, no, I thought it was lazy too.
I mean, I don't mind it being lazy. It was one of those things where I was like, shit, how can I eke enough gameplay out of this, right, to make it? Otherwise, because otherwise you're up immediately and then
Yeah,
you're up. And so it's a fairly lazy thing. But I mean, I think the actual gameplay, it's a very grenade orientated um, sort of area,
yeah, yeah.
which I quite like.
It's always tough though, where it's like you want to get the player from the bottom of this building to the top of this building, and it looks good, like it makes sense from the outside, like you need something in this building, but when you're like, I don't have anything to put in this building,
Right.
is when it kind of tough.
Yeah, exactly. And it was, and I mean, to be honest, I always fall back on turrets, right? Because for me, like turrets are just a fun challenge. It's for some reason I really like that gameplay. In the same way, like I like zombie gameplay.
Yeah.
I guess it means I don't have to script the soldiers, right? In quite a
Yeah, because the turrets are already covering them, you don't need to do yeah, yeah.
Um, Instantly, and when you get to the bottom of this corridor, when you open this door, it teleports Alex into the car outside
Mhm.
so that she's ready to be picked up, right? With the crane once you get there.
You can lock the car so she can't get out, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I've actually had quite a lot of people where she's not in the car or she doesn't teleport properly or something like that.
Yeah.
And that is still a known issue that I'm still trying to solve. But I could just teleport her up to the road level, right? After you bought the car. Once
I
you bought the
guess,
car.
yeah, yeah.
But it was kind of fun to have her in the car while you picked it up with the crane.
Yeah, yeah.
No, never sort of spinning around. And so I didn't want to lose that. But yeah,
And it's just a kind of funny situation for her to be in too. Like,
right, exactly. Um, these cameras, do you think people got the fact that you were being watched all the way through before you get to the end?
I don't know. I mean, to be honest, I haven't played through the release version. I just did the beta testing that you had me do,
True.
and then kind of haven't really touched it since then. So I couldn't tell you.
But it's that Overwatch at the end, right? It's the baddie, right? That you
Yeah, I've actually played that fight, so
and,
I'm sorry.
yeah, but whether it pays off at the end, of having those cameras all the way through, I don't know. And then this turned out to be really tough at the top, having these two guys here, two combined AR2s, right, on top of the crane area.
and you have like no cover, and
Yeah, this is brutal. I mean, because there's no way to close the distance
mm-hmm.
without getting really done. So, and to me, this is kind of more fun than throwing 100 soldiers at people. Is trying to
Yeah,
solve a problem like this, which I'm not sure it's fun. It's not good combat gameplay, but it is still a fun. I guess it's a bit like turrets, at a distance
yeah,
as well.
yeah.
Maybe I'm just a one-trick pony, right?
It's what's the word? It's different, and it makes the player have to rethink their strategies because
Right.
I say this every time is I think this in Half-Life 2 the player's arsenal is best for close range. Like they
Yeah.
have plenty of
Yeah.
long range options, but for the most part, it's
Right.
the long range options are always the powerful weapons.
Yeah, and actually, that's why I don't give the player the pistol.
Well, the pistol's okay. The pistol is a long range option, but it also sucks.
It's
So,
yeah,
other than the pistol, your long range options are kind of limited.
yeah, exactly. Oh, look, Alex has got the shotgun in the car, which I
So must not be firing the unentered vehicle because she's just teleporting into it. Interesting.
yeah, that's why. Because when she gets in the vehicle, I've got a command there which basically replaces her gun with the pistol. So she
Mm-hmm.
discards the shotgun in favor of the pistol when she's in the car, and then uses the shotgun out of it. Which is funny. You can see discarded shotguns if you look closely. Like this shotgun's laying around.
No one of the top I know where you are. They're just following the trail of shotguns.
Exactly. And then so she is in the car. So I have had a couple of people report the bug. And then the other thing I'd say about this area is trying to get. You can see the edge of the skybox there, with the water really badly.
Yeah.
That is something I still haven't really solved in terms of blending skybox cameras and water. Water is just painful.
I know on a lot of Valve levels, they actually just have a really far away water line.
They do.
Like
They do. They're in the skybox. Yeah, exactly. But because I want the mountains, I can't do that.
well, I mean, they as in the water extends like really far out past the player's view distance.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't like what's the word I'm thinking? It doesn't blend into the skybox at all. It just goes far enough that it fades into the fog.
And actually, that's what I should do. That's what I already pushed out. Oh, that's the other thing. I already pushed out. I'm not sure how many people actually stay and play with the crane, right? Because there's loads of stuff to pick up and chuck around. There's goodies in these containers. But what I have is they were chucking out it's terrible. They chuck out the crane, they chuck out the containers, and the wall of the level was so close that the containers would hit the side of the level as it came down this way. So I couldn't see how I did it here. But actually, you're right. What I should do is just push this right the way out so that it blends and it doesn't notice, which I think is what.
Size isn't really an issue when it comes to stuff like this. It's just detail level.
Yeah.
So if you have the proper water optimization stuff,
Yeah.
you should be okay with just pushing it out as far as it can go.
And then and obviously you've got the jump at the end, which is sort of the vehicle gate, right?
God, I remember playing like 3 different versions, and you didn't have the kill trigger on this jump, and I kept messing it up.
I think I do actually have those, but the funny thing is, it's like, should I have the kill trigger working for Alex, or should I have it for the car? Right? The fail trigger. And I eventually put both in because it's actually possible for players to get it without her, and then And then the other thing that was really funny here was the G-Man is here. I spawn him when you reach the crane, right? Just over on this bit. If you're looking, because obviously you're all the way over the crane. Wow, look, those view distance pop-ins for models need to be probably extended. But no one looks back at this point, right? But yes, I had the G-Man here, and there was a point when he didn't despawn. I didn't kill him, and you just so you can run him over.
Like you would actually get killed by the car?
Yes, I think so. And then the other thing, spawning into the next levels, where you've got the whole spawning of new entities, right? And Alex is one of those entities that just spawn. And I had a point where she was spawning incorrectly, and so when you transitioned into the next level, you ran her over immediately. Oh my God. I know. It's brutal. We should probably wrap it up there, though. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Hey, no problem. Thank you for inviting me. This was fun. I haven't done something like this in a while.
Any last thoughts not last thoughts that you're going to be executed or anything, but just any before we stop recording?
I just want to once again say that how this level kind of flows, especially that opening, is just you're using existing Half-Life 2 assets to make something that you've never done in a Half-Life game before. and it just shows how much good level design and a nice sandbox of tools you can do anything. Like it doesn't matter if you haven't made this game and you don't have some fancy new NPC, you can still make new and interesting experiences for people.
I think that's always been what I've been trying to do. Thank you for that. But I think the other thing as well is like if you look at the just the environment, right? It's ignore the terrible water, but it's the mountains from Episode 2. It's the sky from Half-Life 2 when you reach Black Mesa East, right? It's the mountains from different, and sort of by mishmashing these different elements together to come up with sort of new environments is there's still a lot of life in the old Go yet, right?
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Have a great Saturday. Thanks for getting up early. Take care. Thanks for listening, everybody. Bye.
Bye.